Hi, everyone. I hope you're having a great day or night. I am Serena Sun with Breaking Taboo. Welcome to another episode of our podcast, Breaking Taboo, where we break taboos around all sorts of topics, mostly surrounding mental health, but depending on where the conversation goes, we never know. Today, I am very happy to be sitting here with Kevin Benevides, who I just had an IG Live event with. So if you follow us on Instagram, you might have seen our IG Live around men's mental health. Now, Kevin Benevides is a men's transformational coach, and he is with the Canvas Within. So you can also find him on Instagram under the Canvas Within. And Kevin has been passionately sharing heart-centered and inspiring social media content since 2014 with the Canvas Within. It was a platform where he could share his journey through mental illness and help inspire others to overcome challenges in their lives and transform their lives. So now Kevin has used all his knowledge that he has learned in his personal development and all of that, and all of his training, and now he's helping other people, more specifically, mostly men, correct, in transforming
Correct.
their
Yeah.
lives. Awesome. So yeah, we talked a lot about emotional intelligence on our IG Live, which
Yeah.
is very interesting because that's something that you focus a lot on, because based on what I was hearing from you, that's something that you see that is very common around the type of help that men often need in their personal lives and their personal development, and in particular often their relationships, is the emotional intelligence and emotional processing part of things. So so I really want to get a little bit deeper into that conversation, but before we do, I want to just clear it up for everyone there that haven't seen our IG Live. Difference between men's mental health and that you focus on, men's transformational topics, like the type of subjects and things that you talk about with your male clients that you feel like separate them from a just general transformational coach type of clients, and or women. Right, so women
Right.
coaches. So yeah, so what makes your men's transformational coaching special and catered to men?
For me, so in regards to my coaching for men, it's helping them basically take an inner journey and getting to know themselves at a deeper level. So getting to know how to deal with the thoughts that are going through their minds, and also with their emotions, and really getting familiar with how to not only understand it, but how to process it in healthier ways. And a lot of what I do within my coaching is to support men in healing their emotional pain. So
Mhm.
that's a key element within my work, is that a lot of our behaviors within our lives as men that are unhealthy stem from a past experience, trauma, something that they've never fully processed and moved through, and therefore it's affecting how they are today. And so
Yeah.
it's in helping them move through those emotions, move through that process, that those events, and then really get in line with who they actually want to be, because how they've been acting is not what they actually want for themselves. And so it's in understanding that. And when it comes to mental health, how does it differ from women? For men, it's just the stigma or the conditioning around men and masculinity is the fact that we're not supposed to be talking about our emotions. We're not supposed to be showing our weakness and saying that we're sad, we're depressed, or we need help is again generalized as being that man is a weak man, and men don't want that, obviously. And so therefore, growing up learning this through whether it was family, education, or society, um, us men have a hard time dealing with what's going on within us, because we're like, I cannot show this to the world. So therefore, if I can't show this to the world, I can't actually get help and move through this. So
Mhm.
therefore, become stuck in it.
Mhm.
Hence why, like, men's suicide is is it 3 times women. It's like 75% men compared to 25% women. Why is that? Well, we can't talk about where we have such a hard time talking about what's going on within us.
Mm-hmm.
And again, moving through that pain that might happen, that emotional pain that might have happened in the past, all those things combined is what shifts it differently for men than for women. And
Mm-hmm.
it can happen for women. There perhaps are women out there that don't want to talk about their emotions, but again, in a generalized way, it's mainly men, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so um, for me, it's getting men to open up,
Mm-hmm.
right, in the coaching, and getting them to move through what they're not really doing within their own lives, and hence causing all of the issues or the problems in their lives, and
Mm-hmm.
helping them understand it and move through it. And right, for some men, not even being able to cry. And then when we're going through when I'm working one-on-one, it's is allowing them to cry, right? Allowing them to open themselves up to that.
Mm-hmm.
Another thing is even the opposite. There are some men who cannot express anger because they were taught that, again, that's what they were taught, is that we don't, I don't express my anger, so I suppress it and I suppress it. But those suppression of anger comes out in so many different ways. And so it's also helping them move through that. So it's
Interesting.
just, yeah, I find it
Right.
so interesting, and so yeah, I really enjoy it, because it's allowing that man to really embody his humanity, really, right?
Mm-hmm. Right.
Because they get so stuck in this one way of being and not really integrate everything of what they are, right?
Right.
All parts of themselves.
Yeah, there's a few things there that you said that I want to touch upon. But first, I do have to
Sure.
say the suicide part, that being my mission and all, I do have to say that I'm not quite sure the 75%. I'm not sure like when that data was presented, how old
Right.
that data is. But I do have to say that the reason, so theoretically, the most accepted reason for the reason why there are more male recorded actual suicides, successful suicides, than women is because of the means that men use it. So it's not necessarily, I just want to clear it up, it's not because women attempt suicide less than men. That's not the case.
True.
It's just that the means that women choose to do it often are a little bit less a one and done lethal type thing. So
Correct.
yeah, so that's basically the reasoning there. So firearms versus pills, for example. So yeah, but anyway, the other thing I want to mention was it was interesting. You're talking about anger. So a lot of men suppressing anger. During our IG live, we had spoken about the stereotype where men deal with their emotions through anger. Yeah, very
Correct.
outwardly. And I almost wish we brought this up in the IG live too, because yeah, absolutely. There's the other side of it that I see also, and I've personally experienced as well, which is like men who don't get angry, but it absolutely does come out in other unhealthy ways. So yeah, what is that about, Kevin? Like, what do you typically see, and what are some other ways that do occur, that do happen when men suppress their anger a lot?
Yeah, when men suppress their anger, well, one, it comes out in actual physical illness,
Mm,
right?
mm,
That,
mm, mhm,
that stored anger, that stored energy, again, it manifests in an illness, right? In a dis-ease, because within they're not at ease
mhm,
from building it up for so long.
mhm,
Um, but in regards to um, why does it happen for men? I think it's a lot like the people pleaser, right? Again,
mhm.
I would consider myself I'm a recovering people pleaser, as I say it.
Okay.
Something that I lived with for so long, and still, again, plagues my life from time to time. But as a people pleaser, you again, you don't want other people to get upset at you. So if you show your anger towards them,
Mhm,
then that's not going to cater to what you're actually trying to get, which is their love and their approval, their acceptance, right? So we don't outwardly express the anger to most people. There might be that one person in your life, could be like your intimate partner or something, that you will, but everybody else, they don't see that. They think that you're like this
Nice
calm,
guy.
cool, this nice guy. It's the nice guy syndrome, right?
Yeah.
Being this nice guy. He's just such a nice guy. He's just such a nice guy. And meanwhile, he's like raging inside, right? But he
If you
doesn't
only
let
knew
that
the
out.
thoughts inside.
Exactly. So you don't see that because again, it goes against what the personality of that man, in the
Mhm.
sense that I want everybody to like me. And if I show this anger, they're not gonna like me.
See,
Right?
I find it so interesting that you're saying that about men because I feel like that's typically stereotypically more of a female driven a problem in society. It's more common for women because women are typically more the ones that are taught to be people pleasers and the ones that are overly apologizing and the ones that are, not supposed to get angry because, anything that
That's
involves
true. That
power
is true.
is not feminine, so anger is a certain thing that involves power and that's not very feminine for women to get angry. In fact, they're supposed to cry instead or whatever. So it's interesting that you see that a lot with your clients who are men as
I
well.
do. I've seen
Yeah.
it with myself, and
Yeah.
I do see it with my clients. Like,
Mhm.
yeah, and it ruins their marriage because they have so much built up anger and resentment towards their partner because
Mhm.
again, they've been doing all these things within their relationship to get their partner's approval, love, for them to get whatever their unmet need is through their partner,
Mhm.
that over time, never being able to speak this to their partner builds all that stuff within them, right? But it does exist. It definitely does exist. Again, like
I would have
I'm
to, yeah,
yeah,
I contest to that because I have been in a
yeah,
relationship where I have actually experienced that from the man. So I find it fascinating that you're talking about it right now because I didn't know it was that common. But yeah, I can absolutely contest to that. And it does very, very much affect relationships. So I can experience it firsthand with the other side as well.
yeah, for sure. So for me, the not expressing the anger is come mainly for me is the people pleasing type of man, or the nice guy, right? They're the ones who would suppress the anger
Mm.
in a sense, right? And then obviously opposite of what we talked about in the IG live was the fact that like then you have the other man who will, like, that is their go-to thing, is like the anger comes out easily.
Mhm,
So
mhm.
yeah,
Interesting. Yeah. And speaking of the emotional intelligence part we were talking about earlier, this all stems from just having a lack of emotional intelligence or the tools, basically, AKA the tools and the knowledge to be able to express emotions in a healthy way and have these conversations, open, authentic conversations in which, people aren't triggered by the conversations that they're having or there's just nothing there but a real authentic conversation, which is very difficult for a lot of people to do. So yeah, communication is one of those things. I always say communication is at the heart of a relationship. Like, I honestly believe, I'm a huge communicator. Obviously, breaking taboo slogan, kill silence save lives, or stop silence save lives, right? Because I see that it's a make or break of a lot of things in life, a make or break of literally life and death. Sometimes, you don't talk about your feelings. Nobody's going to know you're depressed and you need help. And last resort, could lead to suicide. That's literally life or death. You don't talk about things, it could ruin a relationship. You aren't open about things. There's just so many things that I see that literally a good conversation and the ability to communicate can resolve, but it's surprising how difficult that is for so many people. So yeah, again, gaining the tools and the knowledge to actually get there to be able to have these conversations is for some people a lifelong journey, and it's a lot of deconditioning things that they were taught when they were younger.
yeah.
um yeah, so huge advocate of communication, obviously. I think both of us, we are.
Yeah, for sure, 100%. So important
Yeah.
to be able to communicate, and that's fully right, and that's with respect. right? That's another thing, is
Mm-hmm.
being able to do that with respect.
Mm-hmm.
And
Absolutely.
that's the I think that is the downfall. I think we can't really classify it as a man or woman thing. Is just, again, how we talked about, like, how responsible are you,
Mm-hmm.
how
Taking
mature
personal
are,
responsibility. Yes.
yeah, right. And just so that when you go into a conversation, you're not, bashing that other person, you're not bringing them down, you're not listening to what their side is,
Mm-hmm.
and just be
Mm-hmm.
able to, like, again, for me, it's like an ego thing.
Right.
I love looking at it in that sense, right? Like your ego is like defense mechanism. It's like, hey, don't bring me down, don't make me feel like this, or don't make me feel less than. And so the ego
Right.
is the one that it's like trying to, is the defense, right? This is being
Absolutely.
defensive, right? And so can you
Yeah.
drop the ego and just be like, it's okay if they say something about me, it's not, perhaps it's not the truth, but again, being responsible enough to be like, oh yes, there's some truth in that, right? But
Mm-hmm.
it's, again, how are you able to handle what you're feeling?
Mm-hmm.
Because a lot of us don't want to feel that discomfort of those conversations, right?
That's basically, yeah, having a more fragile ego. Absolutely. People with lower self-esteem and more fragile egos that haven't really worked on their self-confidence are the ones that are more easily triggered, the ones that are less able to have these conversations, or more defensive, or whatever, unable to have an authentic one. So that's something inner, like that's something, again, that's working on self-confidence and self-esteem. That's huge. That's not something that you can do, within the short of period of time. That's often, it is something that is a lifelong journey for many people. Is
Yeah.
so yeah, we're talking about confidence and self-esteem issues underneath, I think, the whole concept of ego, and like how fragile your ego is and whatnot. And I do also have to say that, in studies of narcissistic personality disorder, that really is at the heart of it too. Narcissists are extremely sensitive to things, like extremely, extremely sensitive, because like they can't take any criticism whatsoever, because their ego is really fragile. Like it literally, they will take it personally. They will take everything
Yeah.
personally. So
Those, yeah, a narcissist is like the the lowest of the low of self-esteem and self-love, for they have none,
mhm,
right?
that's so
But
sad.
again, they use that mask or that thing, which is the narcissist, like to beat that other person down or whatever it is.
Make
It's
themselves
just,
feel
again, to
better.
make
Mhm.
themselves feel better, but they'll never let you know that. But that's the truth, and that's what we have to. And now we don't have to. I guess somebody who's dealing with somebody who is a narcissist is to understand is that person's actually at the lowest of the low within themselves. They don't have a good relationship with self. Therefore, why they're trying to manipulate everything outside of them to keep them safe, right?
Mhm.
And so it's an interesting dynamic. Narcissistic stuff, I don't like touching really much with people,
Clients,
because it's
difficult
yeah, it's
clients. Yeah.
hard. It's hard.
Yeah, I should
Yeah,
do that. Reminds me, I should do a whole, it would be great to do a podcast around NPD, because it is a fascinating disorder, I think. And a lot of people, I think there's a lot of myths around it as well, and a lot of like misconceptions around it, and
for
a lot of
sure. Yeah,
misinformation around it, as with any mental health, diagnosis. But yeah, but anyway, getting back to men's mental health. So or sorry, men's transformational coaching, and all the work that you do around that.
yeah,
One thing that you said that I find interesting as well, when you were talking about the not expressing emotions, whatnot. I think it's also very cultural,
it
because
is.
in in the Western culture, feelings and emotions are a lot more accepted than in the Eastern culture. So
Okay.
a lot of what you were saying that you saw that was relating more to men, actually, I also felt on a personal level, as in like I was raised that way also, in not showing your emotions. Like I was actually raised kind of like a male in Western society, in the sense where like I was told always not to cry when I was little. Crying was bad. Don't, like, if you express an emotion, no one's going to care. they're just going to pretend you didn't say anything, like completely ignore it type thing, because
Hmm.
it's very cultural. People in the Eastern culture are not as comfortable talking about feelings, so it's very fascinating
That's
for me to
interesting. Yeah.
see. Yeah, and I'd be very curious around the studies around that as well. But there's there's a lot of learning how to be tough and take it and not complaining in the Eastern culture, which is good for certain things, for like if you want to excel in something, if you want to, whatever, like the things that take mental stamina, but they're all about like the mental stamina, like and if you oftentimes like have something that is affecting your mental emotional health, it is seen as weak, unfortunately, still. So the stigma is also very strong culturally, in a lot of cultures as well. I think the Western society is one of the only ones that are as open about feelings, to be honest.
Interesting. Yeah.
Yeah.
Never. It's true. When you started talking about it, I think, okay, I could understand. I know some people who are from Eastern cultures, and it's like, yeah, that sounds pretty true. And again, it's all how you're raised, right?
Hmm.
What you were taught, what's, and then it came down generation to generation. That's
Hmm.
how like your parents learn, and they're same thing, right? And but at the end of the day, it's um again not being in a healthy balance of your humanity, of the masculine and the feminine. And
Hmm.
then like for this is like you said, there's some what's the word I'm looking for, there's some benefits of having being mentally strong and like that, but when it becomes toxic or unhealthy is when it's like that's the only thing that's the only way you should be, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
So that's not, you're not healthy, there's no healthy balance of what's actually true for you as a human being. Again, doesn't matter your gender, right? It's
Right,
being
right,
able to balance both. Yes, and if you're always just emotional and cry at a whim or whatever it is,
right.
you're not going to be able to handle yourself in life, right? So you have
Hmm.
to be
I know
able to,
people like
it's
that
a
too.
balance, right?
Yeah.
You have to have a balance of both.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm just thinking about people I know, and I know people definitely from both sides, ones that are very tough and macho and like, oh, like, I'm mentally strong. I don't need this and I don't need that. And they're very prideful about it, actually,
Right.
and they walk around like, oh, I don't even believe in mental health. It's funny when they tell me that. And I'm like, okay, I don't judge, so I have to say that some of them are my friends because I don't judge, right? But I do try to kind of bring some awareness into this, but still. And then I also know the other side where it's just like I don't know, it's like so sensitive that sometimes you feel like you have to walk around eggshells with them, right? As to not like trigger them, or not to where they might break down or whatever, and just certain things in life that a lot of people experience on a normal basis, or things that just happen. It's like their whole entire world crumbles and they're unable to do anything. They can't, they might not be able to go to work, they might not be able to function, because something that happened. And sometimes it's like, well, I can think of like 10 other people this has happened to on a regular basis and they're fine. So yeah, so there is no like, there really is no easy way, I guess, of saying this is exactly how you should be or this is how you shouldn't be. But I think, I always preach for empowerment. So I feel like, as long as
That's
you
it.
feel empowered and being authentic and doing whatever, like that's the most important aspect, I think,
Yeah.
to feeling mentally healthy, at least for me.
Yeah, it's again the responsibility, feeling like you're empowered, like you're in your power, right? You
Mhm.
can be in your truth of what's
Right.
going on within you,
Right.
right?
Absolutely.
Because a
Absolutely.
lot of us we're not that. We feel one way, but then like we were talking before, like we blame another person for this or that, or what
Yeah.
you're saying right now, where it's like you take everything so personally, your feelings are hurt, and you just like can't live with the world, you can't go on, kind of thing.
Hmm.
Um, but you're not really standing in your power or living in your power.
Mm-hmm.
You get to honor what's happening within you,
Mm,
but you have, like, you got this. We just, again, haven't been given the tools to be able to, like, I got this. Like, sure, maybe I've been down for a day or two, like, but I know how to get myself out of this, right?
yeah.
I sort of say it's like for myself, my whole transformation started when I was dealing with really severe anxiety.
Mm-hmm.
And so I dealt with anxiety for most of my life, didn't know what it was. I just thought it was just whatever, just part of me kind of thing. But for like 6 months, I was dealing with really bad anxiety.
Mm-hmm.
But then I learned the tools and I learned about myself to the root of the anxiety. So I was able to move through that pretty quickly once I started doing that inner work.
Mm-hmm.
Fast forward many, many, many years, I actually just had a conversation with somebody else the other day, and they were asking me, like, have you felt anxiety since then? And I was like, yeah, actually, in the beginning of the pandemic, for like almost 2 weeks, my anxiety levels were like high, and actually affected how I was going about my days because I was really, like, it was really bad.
Mm-hmm.
But because I had, nobody's saying that I shouldn't have felt that, but it's the, like, okay, I got the tools now, right? Like, I have the tools and I understand myself. So now I can move through this way quicker, right? So again, going back to what we were saying, it's just, do we have the tools to deal with what life is giving us? And are we empowered within ourselves to move forward instead of
Right.
giving our
Right.
power away to whether it's people, situations, feelings, thoughts, right? Like,
Absolutely. Yeah.
oh,
Absolutely.
yeah,
Yeah. I really like that. I really like the concept that, yeah, a lot of people give their power away. Like they blame, yeah, what you're saying is they're blaming the situation or somebody else. And then that's causing them to, feel powerless and out of control and lots of self-pity there, like why me, why me, why this happened instead of kind of being like, okay, like this happened, how am I going to respond? And then taking actionable steps and then moving on with their life, and
yeah,
unfortunately some people aren't necessarily in the mental capacity to do that. They still have to really work on, obviously, not to sound cliche, but yeah, the mental strength. So there's books about mental strength too, which I do think are sometimes toxic. I do think there's
okay,
certain elements of thinking you have to be, just like we said, mentally strong all the time. I think there's a very popular book. I forget what it's called, but it's something about like literally being mentally strong. And it's kind of like, I also really like, on the opposite end, Brene Brown,
Brene
her book.
Brown, yeah,
Yeah, her book on the power of vulnerability. So they're kind of like almost like two different thought processes, right? Like there's
exactly.
power in being vulnerable, and then there's mental strength. So again, there's no one set formula for everyone, and everyone's kind of working on this. I hope, at least, the ones that care about our mental health and well-beings and emotional health and all that, the ones that are more in tune, we're the ones that are constantly, I think, working on this and not being ashamed of telling people that we're working on this, or not being ashamed of working on it, right?
Yeah, it's a really important piece there. It's just,
It's like working
we're
out.
all,
Yeah.
exactly, yeah, it's okay, we come to a point in our lives where, like, okay, you know what, I just take care of myself. Like, I'm learning how to take care of myself, and
Right.
it's not just my body, it's my emotions, it's my thoughts, it's my
Mm-hmm.
spiritual life, like, it's everything. How can I take care of that? And it's
Not feel
okay,
bad.
like, and not feel, and there's nothing to feel bad about.
Right.
It's
Right.
growth
Mm-hmm.
is a good thing, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
So it's like,
Tony
to
Robbins
say,
said that. Tony Robbins says whatever is not growing is dying.
exactly.
Remember that.
No, it's true. If you're not growing, you're dying pretty much, right? Or you're,
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah. So I want to ask you kind of something I mentioned during the IG live as well. The um I don't know if it's controversial or not, but at the same time, it's also based in fact. The idea of men being mentally strong, speaking of mental strength, like the idea of men being masculine and strong and not talking about their emotions and their feelings, all of that has like evolutionary roots, and perhaps even biologically, there are biological and neurological aspects to men's brains functioning kind of differently, and this is just I know that some people might want to argue that men and women are the same and that we're equal and da 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 da. However, studies do show that there are certain neurological
For
and
sure, for
biological
sure.
differences, right, in men. And evolutionary wise, all of these, the concept, obviously, of men being macho had a reason. There's a reason why this stuff happens, So I'm curious if you wouldn't mind talking a little bit of like, why men are taught to be strong and taught to not cry, and what were the past benefits of that? Yeah.
Yeah, so I think again, it's if you look at the evolution of human beings, men were the um, in the hunter-gatherer days, like we were the one that protected our family. We had to go out and hunt and bring the food for the women to cook. We protected so there. That's
Protection
just a part
aspect.
protection aspect, right? So
Yeah.
that's just and again, if you look at even our physical, like our bodies, for most
Hmm.
part, men are bigger, stronger. That's because that's what
Hmm.
we were meant to do. And so
Hmm.
as the time went by, that's what actually that was a healthy thing, right?
Right, right.
But also back then, before men were initiated, we had like a passing of rights when boys were going into manhood. So we were taught um,
Were
how to
they?
properly be a man. Oh yeah, for sure. Like there tribal, like certain tribes and stuff like that. They would
Okay.
initiate the boys when they're
Uh-huh.
like a certain age. Like this is how you step into manhood, right? Like
And
now
how
we
would
don't
they
have.
say?
Pardon?
What would they say? This is how you step into manhood. How?
Well, it's like certain sort of like tests that they would have to go through,
Oh,
and right, teaching them certain things, and you don't get this until you're able to do this, in a sense, right? Like until you're able to go and catch that fish, you can't get married, in a sense, right? But they were also taught by the elders how to actually be as men. But what I think what all happened is, as time gone by, and say even the last 100 years, things have shifted. The way that we live shifted, and what ends up happening is, from my point of view, I don't know if this is true or not. I see it just like more and more trauma as life has evolved and changed. There's been more and more trauma
mhm,
within our lives,
mhm,
and not knowing how to deal with that.
mhm. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know
not,
about
not
the
not knowing how to
trauma
deal
part.
with that
Yeah.
not knowing how to deal with that again. If we're going, men are the strong providers, this and that, then we don't deal with that pain,
Yeah.
right? We don't
Yeah.
deal with what's happening, and so that's just over and over, like as the generations have gone by,
Right.
say in the last couple 100 200 years, comes to a point where it's shifted. That now that definition of masculinity has shifted. So
Yeah.
there's some healthy parts of masculinity, but it's again, how are we defining it? And we're defining it in unhealthy ways,
Do you feel
right?
like masculinity is becoming null? Is gonna be like
No, it
a
shouldn't.
concept?
It shouldn't.
No?
No, it
Why
shouldn't.
not?
Because just like femininity, because it's a part of us. It's a part of every human being. You have masculine traits and energy within you. I have feminine traits and
But
energy
what
within me.
makes a masculine or feminine if they're all kind of crossing and they're both,
I don't know how it makes it, but you can list off certain personal uh, qualities and traits within a human being that is a more feminine, like nurturing, um,
Mhm.
you know,
But
uh,
where aren't we kind of
openness.
changing the paradigm right now, which is like men can be and should be nurturing and women can be and should be strong.
Correct, correct. But again, it's being a whole human being, being
Right.
in your humanity, so you can be with both. Like you can. have both traits and both things. But again, as you said earlier, you were saying in regards to physiologically, like our brains and our bodies have been wired a certain way as men, and there's ways for women. And so therefore those certain things, like a man, in a sense, they need to be a provider. If they don't have a purpose, if they don't have a reason, it's very hard for them to go about their life, because that's what we're, again, I think almost like wired in genetically, that we're that provider, right? So if we don't have that thing in us, then like if we don't have that in our life, we don't feel as much, like it doesn't fulfill us as much if we don't have it, right?
But and at the same
Because I
time,
think it's sort
though,
of like wired in.
but and at the same time, more and more men are not are fine with not being providers anymore, and the women are becoming the breadwinners.
Correct. Yeah.
Yeah, so that's what I'm saying, like I wouldn't be surprised if in a decade or so, like people stopped using the word masculine or feminine, because I that's just where I
Interesting.
see
Yeah,
things
maybe.
going. Yeah, I don't know.
I still think we have to have healthy balance of both,
Right,
right?
right.
And healthy ways of dealing with both.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Um, whether we'll have labels or not sure,
Right, right,
but it's still part of us. It's like, for me, it's more of an energetic,
right.
those
Well,
those things are within us,
I
right?
gotta say that, like, the men today are hella confused. I definitely know that. Like, especially in
That's true.
relationships and how to act and what's chivalrous and like whether or not to be chivalrous and whether or not to be providers, whether to hold a door open for a girl or not, like that for a woman, girl, lady, whatever, like for a person, even. I feel like there's so many doubts and questions around those because they don't know, is this woman going to take offense to that? And some do, and some don't, and some women wish that men would do that more, and some women are like, oh, how dare you assume I can't open the door for myself. So there's so much confusion I'm seeing now with men and the roles that they're supposed to play. I don't know, the trauma thing that you said before, I don't know about that. I feel like life was pretty traumatic back in the caveman days also. You're always constantly running away from getting killed.
True.
And there were no mental health tools at all, really back then. So they must have just suppressed it. Luckily, they only lived till they were like, 30 or 20 or whatever.
Less, yeah.
Yeah, but still, I don't know. I feel like there was a lot of trauma back then too. But I think one of the added traumas, yeah, to the now, or just confusions, is men
It's the
don't know how to
narrative.
act. Yeah, they don't know
It's
what
the
they're
narrative.
supposed to do. Yeah,
I,
women too sometimes. Yeah, and
yeah,
then
yeah.
women don't know. I'm just speaking strictly in like heterosexual relationships, where women don't know what they're supposed to and not supposed to expect from a man, or if they're supposed to expect anything. And sometimes women end up feeling bad for expecting things that, if a, I've definitely experienced feeling guilt around like expecting a man to be chivalrous or wanting that or something, and then just doubting myself for it. So there's
I,
confusion for us too.
there's definitely confusion for everyone, but I think at the end of the day, it's how well do you know yourself, regardless of what the outside
True.
world is telling you to be, or what's right or what's wrong. What's true for you? Again,
Mhm.
not true to your limiting beliefs and what you've learned that is not right. And not, I guess everybody, we can just what's right or wrong, but like what's not healthy or
Right.
for the life you actually want.
Mhm.
um
I
is
tend
getting
to
to
get
know
really
yourself.
philosophical, by the way.
It's
Like,
okay. No,
yeah,
I like it too.
rhetorical and
um
philosophical. Yeah.
but I'm trying to say in the sense of like, get to know yourself. What's
Right.
true for you? What do you like? What do you need out of your partner? And
Mhm.
then when you're in those relationships, you get to, as we talked before, I don't know if it was now or the IG, we talked about communication. It's
Yes.
like, are you able to communicate?
Mhm.
Like, this is what I enjoy. Like, if we go out on a date, I would love for you to open the door for me. Oh,
Yeah.
perfect. I got that. Cute. Like,
Yep.
taken,
Yeah.
note
And then
taken,
there's
right?
the
Like
added aspect of, is your partner willing to step up and do that or not? And I think it'll say a lot if your partner is like, no, absolutely, I will not do that because I don't know, whatever reason, believe that women should be independent
for
and do
sure.
that themselves.
Again, it comes back to alignment, right? Are you aligned with yourself? Then do you get in alignment? Do you get in a relationship that is in alignment with you,
Right.
right?
Right. Well, there's a
Um,
whole
uh,
other topic of like, and also, yeah, at a certain point, we'll definitely get a relationship therapist on here as well, or a relationship coach, because yeah, these are very common questions. Speaking of, gender roles, right? Gender roles in modern day relationships and what the heck people are supposed to do. And people are just confused about it left and right. So, yeah.
that's so true. And again, I think that's again what I'm saying is like as we've society has changed, so there's so much more influence outside, right? And we're making like this is what a good life looks like, or this is what you need to be loved, to be worthy, right? We
Mhm.
need this type of house, that type of clothes. So there's so many narratives going on outside that shifts again, like you said, it confuses us. That's why it's getting harder and harder to
Mm.
sometimes for these things. But I guess again, I'll come back to it. Is just can you come to a point where you start taking that journey inward and seeing what's true for you and getting in alignment with yourself? Because what's true for me might not be true for you
Mhm.
based on the life you've lived and who you truly are. And if we get an even deeper level than that, is the soul that you are, right? Not even the Serena, but the soul that came to inhabit your body. What's the truth for that
Mhm.
part of yourself, right? And
Mhm.
that's again deeper and deeper inner work that we get to do. And I think that's what's important is getting to know ourselves, and then we can um, navigate life in such a better way instead
Mhm.
of being so always inundated by the outside world all the time.
Right, absolutely. Yeah, yeah. I mean, yeah, these are again often rhetorical concepts and questions that don't have a definite answer, but
Correct.
as is life. But yeah, just real quick, just to wrap things up, what are some advice that you can give to men specifically, that you see, that you find yourself helping men with a lot? I know you mentioned one thing obviously with emotion and opening up, but is there anything else that you could tell men to be aware of or give them advice about that you think would be beneficial for most men out there, or men
Yeah, I think
listening?
the first thing is being able to speak up, right? Like talk about what's going on in your life, what you're thinking, what you're feeling, um, and going to somebody and having those conversations is so important. If you see that things are not like, don't wait until the last, like when you hit rock bottom to say, okay, I'm ready to change,
Mm,
right? Ch- Change now because you want the best for yourself. Again, it's not going to make you weak, less of a man, or anything like that. Start shifting how you go about your life and how you go about dealing with yourself, right? Don't wait until you hit the rock bottom. Like your marriage is over, your wife's leaving you, you lost your business because of X, Y, and Z. Like, don't wait until then.
mhm,
Like, start now. Start to see how can I better improve upon myself, and
mhm.
then take action steps forward. And then finally, um, yeah, it comes back to, for me, it's just men finally just waking up and saying that I'm able to deal, like I'm able to feel, right? Like instead of stuffing things away, stuffing their emotions down, like be okay to feel. Because
Mhm.
once you start feeling, then you're able to start, okay, this is what I need for, again, if you tie that into what I just said, it's like, this is what I actually need for myself. But sometimes we don't even know because we're just like stuffing it away, stuffing it away. Ego comes out. It's like, well, I'm good. I'm good. Push forward, push forward, push forward. Don't push
Right.
forward, right? Tap into what's going on within you. And then see, okay, what do I need to do or go from here? And just always look to improve upon yourself. You're not, doesn't make you weak, doesn't make you less than, doesn't say that you're not a good person. It just says that you want the best for yourself.
Right,
So,
absolutely.
and
I
then
would
go ahead.
I would actually say that these things make men more manly, quote unquote, actually, or at least more attractive to women when men do work on themselves and show that they, do have a certain level of emotional intelligence and can speak to their significant other about important things. Those qualities are super attractive and super mature. They speak about maturity, like they show, I feel like most women are surprised, very pleasantly surprised when that happens. And they really do take that into account. It's so important. And knowing that a man is working on himself is, again, I would venture to say that that's more manly. That makes that man more manly, quote unquote, right?
Yeah,
So,
for sure.
yeah.
I think one other thing that just came up that's really important that I deal with every guy that I deal with, we always touch on this, is that there's a little boy within you that's looking and waiting to be acknowledged and grieved. Like there's a part of you, the younger part of yourself, whatever happened in your past. And for some, it's been very traumatic, as you would say, or some that hasn't. But at the end of the day, not being able to tap into things that made you feel or be a certain way from your past, from your childhood, is affecting you right now. And so being able to like, okay, what does the 8-year-old version of myself need? And we don't never think about that as men, but that is what, at the end of the day, this is what it comes down to, is a lot of men have like, yeah, such suppressed sadness and grief for the stuff that's happened to them in their childhood that they don't even know, and it's carrying on. It's like it's affecting who they are today.
I think the
So
scary
like
part, though, the scary part is that they don't even know, you said, I feel like that's kind of, I wouldn't say, I mean, maybe
some,
not
yeah, you
scary,
don't
but
know, yeah.
like, yeah, I mean, makes it more difficult, obviously, to treat and pinpoint, because a lot of memories are so suppressed that they become repressed, and literally people don't remember. They lose the ability to
That was me.
remember.
Yeah,
So how did
that
you
was
get
me.
past that, actually? How did you?
Oh, it came up through what was happening within my life, right?
Interesting.
So what I was the challenge that was in my life brought up certain memories, and it was like, oh shoot, like I never dealt with it. So again, not necessarily men who come to me say I got to deal with what happened in my childhood. No, they're like, this is what's happening in my life that's not going well. But for me, my job is not to just talk about what's happening today, is to get to the root of it. And that's where it comes up. And as we go through it, it's like, oh, there's this part of myself that's like buried underneath everything else. I don't know, but it's in the work. It's in the
Right.
process of this personal growth, whether you're doing it with like you have a coach, a therapist, or whether you're doing it on your own by reading books and taking that time to meditate and do things. At the end of the day, you'll start to unravel and start to bring up these things. And again, some of it we do know of, and most of it we don't know what's going on. But it's as you start removing the layers of what's happening, like what's going on, you start to get to that core of that little, again, for me, it's like that little boy. And for me, it was like something happened in my life, and it was like, wow, I didn't even know this existed, but it exists. And now let's look at it.
You didn't know
So
what existed, like the memory that
the
you had suppressed?
the not just the memory, but like the emotion that was tied to it,
Oh,
and how I was feeling about that, and how that actually was affecting how I went about my life and who I was, right?
yeah, yeah.
So it's interesting how it comes into play, but it's there. It's definitely there for a lot of us.
Yeah, people don't often think about how important memories are. So I'm kind of writing a book. Actually, there's a big theme of the book is like memories, and it's just a lot of times people that have dealt with trauma would rather forget. They would rather forget in order to never think about it again because they think that's being mentally strong, or they think that's like the right way to deal with it. And that never works because it will always come up and creep up on you in a lot of unhealthy ways, sometimes even worse later on in life. So it's kind of like the bottle that's like fizzing and it'll just explode type of metaphor. So I think, the unfortunate fact is a lot of people don't remember many things from before and they have repressed it. And then it becomes a challenge to try to figure that out and dig it up because you don't remember. So I know of hypnotherapy, is a very popular and good way of taking, getting those like childhood memories back, but other than that, I don't really know of any really strong tools. It's challenging for sure. It's,
Yeah, and sometimes it's not even necessarily need to know the emotion or like the memory, I should say, of your past. It's just it's showing up and you're present in your body, in your physiological, like trauma gets stored in the body.
right. So there's
So
something there. You don't quite know why it
w-
happened or what it
but
was,
it's
but there's,
there,
yeah.
yeah. And
Yeah.
sometimes you don't even need to know why it's there. It's just moving through what's showing up for you, right? Like how it shows up in your body or your reaction or how you, right? It's like fight, flight, or freeze or please. Like you're like, there's something always happening and
Hmm.
physical, and you don't even know that it's happening. I actually was, I'm reading this one book, and the example is like, um, this one person who is angry, but when it was a female, she was angry, but when she was angry, she was smiling. She's like this. She was always smiling.
Oh, interesting.
So when she's like, why don't these people understand that I'm angry and they just think I'm joking? And she never realized like her actual body was like smiling all the time when she was angry. It's like
Why? Did they
because
figure out why?
again, whatever happened, I haven't gotten to that point. When you get to when you get to but when you get to it, it's like whatever happened in the past with around anger with her was stored within her body that like I can't
Oh,
express it,
interesting.
right? So I smile, right? So she's thinking she's like lit, like she's thinking her face is like you can see I'm angry, but she didn't even know her body was doing that, right? So
That's so interesting.
so
That's
these are little things,
fascinating.
right? These are like little
Yeah.
things that do happen,
Yeah, I
but that's
wonder
just
if
like
it's
one
because like
example.
it was like a learned conditioning thing, as in like
Correct.
I have to mask my anger, so let me do the opposite, and then it just got learned, or if something almost like neurologically got like maybe misfired, or like just flipped in her brain, and that's just the way that her brain expresses anger. So I wonder what it is. It's so interesting.
Yeah,
Um,
it's like even like the trauma in the body, like if a soldier at war was in like an explosion or something, and so now he's going on in his days, and anything that's like a quick like um, abrupt sound, you're like that. The body just,
mhm,
you know what I mean? Like it doesn't. You don't even have to be thinking. You could be thinking about something else. It's
mhm,
just in the body, right? And so it's a somatic thing, right? To be able to move through that.
mhm.
Anyways, we went from ending it and we kept on talking
It's
about
okay.
trauma and how
Well,
it's
I
in
mean,
our
Sigmund
body, but
Freud, Sigmund Freud used to do a lot of not very ethical experiments on that. Like he would scare kids from a very young age. He would like bang a big pot and pan and scare them and see if
correct.
it affected their conditioning, which it did. It almost always did, and that child would develop like severe anxiety or phobia or something. So yeah, absolutely. But yeah, thank you so much, Kevin. This has been a really wonderful conversation. I'm glad that we went to so many different areas. That's how I like it because obviously it's natural and none of this is planned, obviously. And it's just, wherever the conversation wants to go. But but thank you so much for sharing your insights on men and the struggles that they deal with, and growing and transforming and emotional health and all of that. So yeah, any last words you want to share?
No, I just want to again thank you for having me on the podcast. Thank you for everyone who's listening or watching. I don't know how you present this to the world, but thank you for listening. I hope that somebody got something out of this and being able to support somebody with their well-being, whether it's emotional well-being or their mental well-being, like being able to say, hey, this is, you got to listen to this. This is something that's so important and relevant to your life, right? Just
Right.
at the end of the day, it's just being able to support more and more people to live better lives and yeah, to be mentally well. Like
Right.
that's what we need
Right.
to do, is to be mentally well in
And
our lives.
empowered.
Empowered too. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, great. Yeah, thank you so much, everyone, for tuning
Thank you.
in. Thank you, Kevin. And you can find Kevin at the Canvas Within, and he is a men's transformational coach. So thank you so much. Have a great day or night, wherever you are.
Bye everyone. Thank
Bye.
you.